and love, and you just, it's a totally different experience once as you're going, and then you have the afterlife review, which you didn't even get close to. So
very interesting. And I've heard a lot of other stories about a lot of other people that, some things happen and they come back and they have certain powers that they never had before, whether it's, telekinesis or anything. That's not happening to me. I would make sure I'd let somebody know that. But it's just interesting, I kind of wanted your take on that, since you're a very metaphysical soul, and my understanding is you have a degree in metaphysical science. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
A doctorate. Yeah.
Doctrine, see? So I knew who to ask, folks, and we've got a great buzz going on here in the chat room with a lot of people getting a very positive reaction to you. And I do want to shift gears for just a minute, and I don't know if this is my animals or sensing I have you on the phone, but usually when I'm broadcasting, I have this one cat that wants to sit on my lap, and I had to pull a chair next to me, and he's sleeping next to me right now. But usually all my other animals don't bother me when I'm broadcasting, and for some reason they're all sitting here. I've got, the 3 cats sitting here looking at me like they must know I have you on the phone.
Yeah, well, there's something about animal sensitives and animals, and there's something about our energy, and it just makes them feel safe. Like when I was living in Florida, and I was on the pier in St. Pete, I walked up to a pelican, and I was petting the pelican, and people were taking pictures. And then people wanted to pet the pelican. And so some people were like, "Can I pet your pelican?" And I was like, "This isn't my pelican. It's a wild pelican." And, and I'm like, "Go ahead, pet the pelican." So they pet the pelican. And then it became an obsession. So then I had to guard the pelican, because now he started to turn around and, snip at people. And I said, "Do you guys see that, hook at the end of his beak?" I said, if that lands into the fleshy part of your little kid's hands, because it's not my job to police the pelican, I said, then you're going to be going to the ER, just saying, just because that pelican tears open fish. And so the thing is people don't respect nature. And I think that animal intuitives and sensitives and communicators and whatever you want to call us, we have this automatic respect and appreciation for the world around us. And I can remember being a kid, and I always used to say to people, "Can't you hear Mother Nature cry?" Because of all the things that we're doing. And the other night I was on Shirley MacLaine's show, and one of the questions that she asked, was, what does the animal kingdom at large feel right now? And I said, fear and anxiety.
That's a good
because, we're encroaching on their land. We've taken it over. Mm-hmm. And now, because they have no place to go, we have to create false nesting sites for eagles and these majestic animals. And that's why I'm a good wildlife photographer, is because I just have this natural knack to find animals, and I cheat. They talk to me. So the thing is, though, is I find that heartbreaking that they can't even nest in their natural environment, and then we're killing off wolves, and we've already eradicated species.
God, don't get me started on this. I'm a big advocate against this. I've had many people on my show for the advocacy of the. Oh God.
Well, and I said, well, the shark attacks are on the rise, and I said now what we've done is we've pushed Mother Nature to the fight back mode. So I said we're waging war against nature, and she's fighting back, and she'll win because
Absolutely.
she's got all the elements. She can wipe us out. So,
Absolutely.
But we continue with our fracking. We continue with the war and the bloodshed and killing of animals. And I mean, it's a nasty thing that we're doing, and we've evolved into the wrong types of beings, and we've gone more into ego and cell phones than we have connecting to one another. And I think, we were meant to be able to telepathically communicate with each other. And case in point, times where everybody has finished their friend's sentence or their loved one's sentence, or, they picked up the phone and they knew the person that was going to call was on the phone. Or, there's all these psychic experiences that people have. They just pass it off as coincidences. And I learned early on that a coincidence is when you and the universe coincide in your favor. And I think it's a fascinating thing. And matter of fact, when I do psychic development workshops, that's one of the big things that I start talking to people about is, I think one of the greatest gifts that I had, being the fact that I was bounced around from home to home to home, is that I didn't grow attached to anything, except for the dead and angels and that type of stuff. But I didn't trust the living. And so when they said that my experiences weren't my experiences, I was more like, F you, they are too. And, and I know that they're real. Whereas everybody else, I think, was able to be conditioned away from that ability. They got to a point where their imaginary friends just sort of dissipated. And because they reached an age where that was supposed to happen. To me, that never happened, that my imaginary friends are still here talking to me, and they bother me in the middle of the night, and I'm up, and it's, but I've come to a point where it's about honoring my ability. Like, I'm up hours on end at night and maybe get 3 hours asleep a night, and then I'm up doing everything all the next day. So the thing is I believe, first off, that sleep's overrated. I've proven it. And the next thing is that, it's for me to have the ability, I feel like I'm in service. Even though the living employs me, I feel like I'm honestly working for spirit or the angels or whatever type of reading it is that you're booking. The animals that I'm communicating with, they're really my clients, and I don't really see the people as my clients. So, because I trust spirit better, and I trust that they know whether or not my client is ready for a message. They know. And once I removed myself out of the equation, the messages flow and the readings just come better. And I find that a lot of, mediums today, they're like playing, alphabet soup. I got an A connection. What is that? Like anybody can have an A connection. Is that somewhere in the first name, the middle name, or the last name? That. So to me, if I say a name in a reading or a date or anything, I've heard it multiple times throughout the course of the reading. And, and usually I'm talking directly to a person. It's not, I never just toss out when I'm doing a gallery, oh, by the way, I got an A connection. And so I think with whether I do a group reading with animals or if I'm doing something with people, I think that it becomes more intimate, me and the people that I'm talking to as well as the spirits, and being that I see them, it's a totally different thing, I guess. But yeah, your animals definitely sense, and I think psychics by nature tend to attract, because our energy is just different, so it's just safe. We're safe, we're of the light, we're doing different work, and therefore we're trusted. I have a wolf dog, and he's like 98% wolf. And, he's an awesome, we call him Avalok.
Beautiful man.
But, he's gorgeous, but it's just the natural. And when I picked him up, he was a little puppy, and, I'm some lady down past Albuquerque, and I got him, but she was holding him like a baby, which was weird. And then, because we always try to humanize our pets. I think that's the worst thing we could do. We start saying, we start projecting things onto our pets, and we give them personalities, and all this other, and we give him a backstory. Well, she's holding him, and he's leaning towards me like a baby would to like a dad that maybe wanted to go from mom to dad. And so naturally, I took him, and then he was perfectly fine. And we went into Tractor Supply and, walked around, and people asked, what kind of dog he was, and I was like, he's a wolf. And then they were like, why'd you take him from his mom? And I was like, who said I did? Like, where did he come up with these things? So, and I'm an advocate for wolf dogs. I mean, I think, first off, they're going to be here. They're here now, but I think it's not like, because you have to, I think with any pet, you have to understand the animal that you're getting. Whether it's a dog, it's a cat, it's a different breed of a dog. A pit bull is different than, a chihuahua, and so the way that they interact with you is totally different. And I think you need to be able to sense and have a good sense when it comes to pet ownership, and I feel like a lot of people get into this thing of pet ownership, and then they stink at owners, because they don't know how to relate to their animal, and they're not intuitive enough to be able to realize, maybe the animal is snubbing food because it wants to eat raw food, or whatever the situation is. And so nobody really thinks about their animal from the perspective of the animal. And I think with animal communication, that's really what it is. It's a matter of tuning in to that animal, but also their perspective and perception of the world around them and the people around them. And so I think sometimes you see that animals favor one owner to the next, because one usually is on their level and they understand them, and then the other one doesn't, or it just doesn't pay them that much attention. And so I think animals are a fascinating thing, and they teach us more about ourselves if we just let them.
I agree. This is very true. Even in my own household, I don't have any dogs yet. I wanted to get a dog, but my ex-husband doesn't like dogs, so that's going to change. But I have this one cat, and when I got out of surgery, that cat was right there next to me, even before I went into the hospital. If I would have just listened to my cat a little, I know that sounds insane, and I know people in the chat room are going to think I'm completely crazy, but my cat the night before I went into the hospital would not leave me alone. I mean, more than normal. I mean, he doesn't leave me alone anyway, but this was more than normal, and he kept sitting on my side. And I go, why stop sitting on my right side of my body? I go, it's annoying. And I kind of pushed him away. And I feel really bad, William, because the cat was trying to tell me something. He was trying to give me a message that you're not well, lady.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, like, because our animals are more often more psychic than we are.
Exactly.
And they sense the energy in the body. They can tell when things are off for us. They can tell when we're having a bad day. They can tell when something is medically wrong. They can tell, like, how many times have you seen videos being shared on social networks of, say, a dog in the middle of a snowstorm leading a police officer to a house that's on fire, or whatever. I mean, there's all of these different things, and they're selfless in that they'll put their own life on the line for you, and so I can't say many owners would do the same thing, and so I think that now if you have a deep connection with your animal, you would, like police officers and their dogs would typically, the cop would take a bullet for the dog and vice versa, and so you have different things, and I think we're in this, and a lot of people get screwed because they go and they rescue these animals, and the rescue pick up these false stories about what the animal is, first of all, and then they give some miscellaneous backstory that's heartbreaking that may not necessarily be the truth,
right.
And so I think calling in, an animal psychic or sensitive is important, because I think it helps you, the more you understand your animal, the easier it is to train them, to work with them. I mean, some won't sit for whatever reason, or you know, and so you